Hello, Shadwell here, ready to talk about the next film in my collection, Day of the Dead from 1985. It's directed by George A. Romero and stars Laurie Cardell and Terry Alexander. It feels like I've seen George A. Romero's Dead series more than I've seen any other series of films, and even then, only the first 3 films in the series, as after Day of the Dead they become largely forgettable. So my advice, stop with Day of the Dead. Seriously though, there are 6 films in George A. Romero's Dead series, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, which are all great, and then there's the back half, which get worse as you go down the line. Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and finally Survival of the Dead. But the good news is the first 3 are kinda tucked away as their own trilogy because of the day-night cycle they describe, and so I feel no guilt skipping the last 3 films when I watch this series. Which, like I've said, I've seen a lot. They're all highly influential horror films, not just as zombie films, but as films in general. But I gotta say that when I think of the original trilogy, this film, Day of the Dead, is probably my least favorite. I used to downright loathe this film in my teens, but I have largely come around in the decades since to recognize this film for the good film that it is. I mean, it won't win any awards with me like the other 2 films, but it comes close and it has the most impressive makeup effects of the 3 films. That's one of the parts that brought me back around in my thinking of this film, actually, was that everything is done practically and very impressively. With special shout out to the ripping apart of Captain Henry Rhodes, that effect looks sick as fuck and I love watching it because that is true feat of movie making magic. But even though I've largely come around on my thinking about this film, that doesn't mean I love it, and like I said, I've seen it many times, so when I watched it for the purposes of this review, I actually only half watched it as I was playing Power Wash Simulator on my Steam Deck as Day of the Dead played on my TV. Worth it. I already called out the death of Captain Henry Rhodes, so I may as well spoil the opening of the film, which is a boogie-oogie jump scare as all those hands reach through the wall at our protagonist. Also, it seems fitting to mention that this opening I'm talking about is featured in Season 3, Episode 1 of Stranger Things, and if you aren't familiar with that show, what the fuck are you doing? Go watch it immediately, I command it from the sky! Anyway, I'm giving 1985's Day of the Dead a B, and tomorrow we watch a film I bought sight unseen because the cover was intriguing looking. Dead and Buried is tomorrow. See y'all then.